Simmering tensions between the U.S. and Israel over the direction of the war in Gaza have been put aside today. Israel's biggest ally is pushing back against calls for it to pull its forces out of the occupied Palestinian territories.
Any movement towards Israel's withdrawal from the West Bank and Gaza requires consideration of Israel's very real security needs. The court should not find that Israel is legally obligated to immediately and unconditionally withdraw from occupied territory.
The U.S. backing came on the third day of historic hearings in the Netherlands on Israel's control over Gaza, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem. Other countries are making the case Israel has been violating international law for decades, and they're calling on the court to rule in their favor.
The consequences of Israel's prolonged occupation are clear, and there can be no peace, no security, no stability, no prosperity in the Middle East without upholding justice and the rule of law for the Palestinian people.
Journalist Alex Cadier is in Brussels and has more on today's proceedings.
Well, the International Court of Justice in The Hague heard from the United States, from Richard Vizek. He's the U.S. State Department's legal advisor, making the case defending Israel's actions over these past 5 decades. That case made by the United States is one of Israeli security, of Israeli self-defense, making the point that actually Israel could not relinquish control and security control over Palestinian lands so long as there is a threat to Israeli people, the Israeli population, and the security of the state of Israel. Now, it's fair to say that the United States, at least in this particular hearing at the ICJ, stands rather isolated. They've been accused by the Palestinians of being one of only 2 countries willing to defend Israel's occupation of Gaza, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem, the other country being Fiji. So that was the point made by Richard Vizek, the U.S. State Department's legal advisor, that there can be no timeline put or time limit put on Israeli control of Palestinian land so long as that security threat remains. That is the U.S. position. He also said that the court should not urge Israel to withdraw its troops and its presence, its security presence from those areas immediately, leaving a little bit of room perhaps for negotiation for that to happen in future. We also heard from Russia, perhaps a bit of an eyebrow raiser there, the Russian Federation saying that violence only brings more violence and that the collective punishment of Gaza must stop. The same Russian Federation that was ordered to stop its invasion of Ukraine by that very same court. We will continue to hear from other contributions in the next couple of days. We will hear from large parts of the Arab world, including Jordan. We will hear from China to see what their representation has to say about this. But across the board, it has been harshly critical of Israel. Now, this will lead to an advisory opinion by the ICJ, a non-legally binding opinion by the ICJ, which Israel can choose to ignore. But even if Israel does choose to ignore a ruling that goes against it, that international pressure will continue to rise. Alex Cadier for CBC News, Brussels.